Hey everyone, welcome to Independent Living News. This is Chris Mason. I'm here with Lee Bellinger. Lee, how you doing?
Hi, Chris. What's up? How are you doing today?
Hey, doing great. And we've been shooting some of these videos where we go a little bit deeper on the articles that are inside of the print newsletter, Independent Living News, and getting a lot of good feedback from folks. So this is kind of this is another one of those. So looking at the issue we're talking about now is looking at the upcoming July issue. And Lee, your lead story there, you talk about this possible, won't call it pending, but this possible attack that the left could bring about on Donald Trump pretty soon that could do some real damage. I wonder if you might say a little more about that.
Yeah, I went to a conference recently. It was a very exclusive conference by a guy who is probably one of the best mass-based psychologists in America. He is a consummate business builder. I'm not going to bring up his name, but it was actually his prediction, and he's uniquely qualified, Chris, to talk about this subject because he has been selling intellectual how-to products across state lines for decades, and he has been doing it very, very, very successfully, legally, safely. He's doing it for other clients. He's a kind of a millionaire maker kind of guy. He's better known for that, but actually he's a very astute political observer also. And so he made a we had an aside in the conference, and I just had a little private talk with him for a few minutes, and he said that this Donald Trump University situation, yes, Trump is he's pushing back on the Clinton Foundation, and I think he made a pretty brilliant speech about tying and connecting all the Hillary misdeeds together, which is going to be his narrative, but the crooked Hillary stuff and all that. But so Trump has been effective. Trump has also been very wisely getting the happy people with the Trump University. Here's the problem Trump has. This is where this guy made a prediction. I think it's 50-50 or better. Uh, but you know the old saying, you can't with a mule. It's not how hard you kick it, it's where you kick it that counts. And I don't think that blowback from big statements or what Hillary might say, or even a few people upset about Trump University, is going to be an issue. Here's where it gets scary for Trump, though. It's optics that Trump has to be afraid of. What this fellow says is that what does it look like when the TV is turned down? What are those optics? And the thing that he thinks is going to happen is that attorney generals in various states are going to listen to people who are complaining about Trump University, and they could indict Trump in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 states all at the same time. And then he's facing the spectacle, which is an optic that he has never had to deal with before, of being fingerprinted and photographed, which is part of an indictment process, no matter how frivolous it is. And if you come back, I'll tell you why there's lots of precedent for this going on right now. Um, that I think it's a surprise attack that the left could launch sometime between now and November, and I think it's an astonishingly perceptive thing. This guy has to work within the parameters. The person who predicted this has to work within the parameters of many state laws, and he operates so he knows if somebody's even a little bit sloppy, the prosecutors and regulators at the state level can actually tie you up in really big knots and make a big show of it. And there is precedent for this. They did exactly that to Majority Leader Tom DeLay. Tom DeLay was not particularly popular with the Republicans. He certainly wasn't popular with Democrats, and nobody in his party lifted a finger. And so some obscure state prosecutor indicted then Majority Leader Tom DeLay on what he ultimately beat in court, but he couldn't get around the fact that he had to be photographed and fingerprinted, and the spectacle and the optics, and the Republican Party dropped him like a hot rock. Now, if Trump were to get indicted on frivolous charges over Trump University, I do not see Speaker Ryan standing up for him. Speaker Ryan knows that Trump took 50, 60,000 negative ads, and he's more afraid of those special interests than he is Trump. So, he was already tepid on Trump. I think he said something about suing the Trump administration if they try to keep Muslims out. So he's already talking about suing the Trump administration. So I'm not seeing anybody in the Republican Party lifting a finger to help Trump on this situation any more than they did for Tom DeLay. And what I'm telling you is the left knows. They know that this stuff, there's no penalty for doing it. It's all upside for them because we've never fought it ever. And I think, too, that unlike most Republicans, Trump has figured out how to push their buttons for change. They know how to push our buttons, but I've never seen anybody push their buttons the way he can push their buttons. So it is a turnaround for them. I do think there's an element of desperation. I would just also, Chris, there's another thing that supports this theory, which is the attorney generals of 17 states, and this is the first step to nationalize Exxon and the private energy sector. And there's a big reason why the left needs to do this. It'll happen in Hillary's next term if she gets elected somehow. But 17 state prosecutors have been doing, they're actually going after Exxon for misleading and being fraudulent about being climate deniers. So you already have a precedent for this. You've got these attorneys generals who are complaining about the First Amendment. They're calling them First Amendment abusers. First Amendment abusers, really? They're calling them First Amendment abusers, Exxon. So, wow. And they're attacking Exxon, and they're all politically coordinated. And a lot of people don't realize that prosecutors are political animals at the very high level, as are judges. They're political animals, and, they're ambitious people. And, taking out Trump would be a big feather in their cap. If they were to attack on a broad front on Trump, by indicting him on frivolous issues pertaining to Trump University, number one, they would control the optics, and number two, it wouldn't be one face doing it. It would be lots of faces doing it. Number three, there's never been a penalty to the Republicans have never made the left pay a penalty for misusing this process. So, Exxon is fighting back, but the point is that there's a coordinated political effort by state-level prosecutors to get Exxon. And so, and it's all about their First Amendment speaking out about climate change or not being climate change enthusiastic people. And so it's scary. It's a direct attack on the First Amendment.
I've never heard that term, First Amendment abuser. Wow, what a
yeah, it's pretty close to the quote. I picked it up, but they're complaining about, oh my God, they're taking refuge inside the First Amendment. Well, hell yes, that's kind of the point. Frankly, Chris, one of the things I told my readers this month is one of the reasons independent living is staying in print is because the internet is the greatest threat to free speech in America. And any publisher that doesn't have at least a way to talk to their print customers through the mail and through print, it's the only thing left that seems to be grandfathered in. But the web is rapidly no longer reliable for real, true information, unless it's really nutty information, because service providers are cracking down. There's whole industries out there now that do nothing but teach you which words you can use and which words you can't use, and screw that. I've been publishing for 28 years now. I'm keeping my print footprint because publishers that only use email are compromised. I will say this, independent living has a large and sophisticated and noteworthy web operation. So I'm not an anti-technology curmudgeon, but you want to get the truth about health. You want to get the truth about politics. The guys that are telling the truth, the Drudge Report, they're all under attack. I believe Matt Drudge has documented that how they're trying to change the rules, and to get the truth out to people, you kind of need to have the print option. So even though I love to use the web to communicate with people, but it can't just be that. It's only one way of communicating.
Yeah, that's right. And that's my world. We talk about this all the time because the web operation you mentioned is the one that that I run alongside you. So I have to say it is really nice to know that, if we're like, we've got an email service provider that all of a sudden kind of cuts off contact to our subscribers. Um, okay, we've got ink and paper that we can
And radio, by the
connect
way,
with, and
radio
radio.
too.
That's right. Yeah.
Podcasts
Which
are actually
yeah.
podcasts are. I think radio is relatively uncensored at this time. So
Right.
and so I'm just saying I'm keeping the print footprint because what I'm seeing is I think since the attack, I think that anybody that's complained about Muslim extremists have been taken off Facebook. I mean, I can't even keep up with all the censorship that's going on anymore. And it's rampant. And with all due respect to people under 40, they don't know what the hell is going on. They think this is perfectly normal in most cases. I wish they weren't so passive about it. I mean, they should be much more militant about protecting their First Amendment rights. But I think they see it as a service provider problem. Service providers are basically companies that send out your emails for you, and they appear to just be support vendors, but in fact, they're heavily regulated and they dance to the tune of the regulators. So they don't realize it's an indirect form of censorship that apparently a lot of people don't realize is going on until they start shutting down your emails because they call it spam. But really, the reality is it means it's too controversial for them. Somebody has made a decision for you and for the recipients. And look at all the broad attack. It started as a dumbass thing on campuses, and now it is everywhere. This political correctness is really a big threat to America, both, in every way, not just in our foreign policy, but just in what we can do to speak out. So it's a problem. I've been doing it, a long time in publishing, and I was like one of the first on the web. But I've been watching the deterioration of our rights, and I do think that right now print publishers are partially grandfathered into the First Amendment, as are people who communicate via radio. So just a word, I'll be writing about this a lot more in the future so that it doesn't seem like a conspiracy to people. It's not a conspiracy, it's a consensus in Washington of
Right.
limitation on the First Amendment.
Yeah. Well, all really interesting, and especially, I mean, even going back to the Trump prediction earlier, it's funny when you use the term political correctness, I immediately get this idea of Trump, because that's a lot of what people talk about with him, is like he's one of the first politicians that isn't afraid to maybe say things in a politically incorrect way. So it definitely does put a bigger target on his back, going back to, would these attorney generals come together
Well,
to indict him?
the Republican Party itself is horribly infected, and it
Sure.
needs. I mean, I think I saw a poll somewhere recently that 75% of Republican rank and file voters think that they need to, be reformed. But basically, the political class are simply, they're not really evil necessarily, but they're incompetent. They've been losing elections by being mamby-pamby on issues and letting the left skate on all these issues and not being aggressive enough about calling them out and challenging and questioning them on everything, which is what Trump does. He's tumultuous, but all this hand-wringing about, oh, well, the politics are so mean. You study go back to the founding of the Republic. American politics has always been nasty. It's always been nasty. It's just that it was more contained among a small number of people who were politically active. But now that politics has infected virtually everything, the ugliness is spread across, and everybody can see how ugly it is. And they're going, my God, politics is ugly. Well, it's designed to be ugly because it's better than people shooting each other. But, remember that the gate pass to getting to winning is trashing another person's reputation. So it draws more evil people than pretty much any other profession. So,
Oh,
but it's less contained than it used to be.
yeah.
So the contagion of politics is in everything. It's in healthcare. It's in the micromanagement of the economy. And so politics is so big now that it's the poisoning of the politics is felt far and wide. And so that's why there's a lot of revulsion against it.
Great. Well, I mean, I always learn something new every time we talk, Lee. So this was no exception. So, as always, really great to talk to you.
Good talking to you, Chris. Take care.
All right.